We are dodging the traffic down here in Southern California, just coming into San Diego. We'll talk a little bit about the agriculture. You know, you don't think of California as an agricultural state, but it is. And we'll visit one of the big iconic hotels in San Diego. When we were there, the historic downtown area, and above all, we'll have to go and take a look at the San Diego Zoo and all of the animals there, including the Chinese Panda Bears. Okay, come along, let's get into town. We rode our bikes along the San Diego seashore. This is looking northward at the city from near the Mexican border. Driving along and over this bridge in the distance, we took a couple of photos of the harbor area. We just rolled down the window and took the photos from the side window. Nice and warm and scenic. San Diego is a major U.S. seaport, and ocean freighters float out in the Pacific waiting their turn to come in. In the late afternoon, this freighter turned around. Who knows, maybe the captain just wanted to get a better view of the sunset. The Pacific horizon offers a great sunrise and sunset panorama many times. Here are a few photos of the highway coming from the north into San Diego along the coastline. Just continually scenic and interesting. Again, the road in this area was a two-lane road, a nice road. The interstate is further inland. We stopped by the seashore and once in a while and had a coffee and looked at the view. And as you can see, the road and the view is really good. Rocks sometimes fall on the highway off the cliffs, and you can see meshing here to protect traffic from that. We are at Oceanside here, a community just north of San Diego, and it has several kilometers of unrestricted beach area that you often find elsewhere along this Southern California coast. You also find a lot of Catholic missions, churches, and seminaries, as this country was settled by the Spanish, and the current Hispanic Latino legacy is very strong and evident. The Spanish language television channels that we got seem to outnumber the English-speaking channels. A lot of people mean a lot of traffic. We overnighted at this interstate rest stop near here, and someone told me that some vehicles had been lived in full-time by people for the past few years. The rest stop was crowded, but very well maintained, and we felt absolutely comfortable staying in it. Often we find that free camping spots like rest stops and travel stops and Walmarts and so on, besides being free, are easier to find than sometimes state or provincial parks. And you don't have to restrict yourself to planning every day in advance. But that is our style, and it is important that everyone finds the traveling style that they like best. We saw these greenhouses and fields along the highway as we got closer to San Diego. California is a major agricultural state. It is the only U.S. state to have a certified organic agricultural program. It provides about 14% of all U.S. agriculture and is the number one U.S. state for agricultural production and exporting. Dairy is the largest money producer, and the grapes and almonds are major products. California produces about 400 different crops, including 90% of all U.S. avocados. It has a good climate, fertile soil, a good workforce, but in recent years, there has been an increasing shortage of water. Some dairy operations have had to close down or move to more open areas in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And this has been due to less money, lower prices, higher costs, and an increasing population who wants to consume more agricultural lands. I missed a sign somewhere and got into the wrong lane and tried to get into the military base here, but I got turned around. Camp Pendleton is a 42,000 personnel military training base on the north side of San Diego, and they don't allow non-military people like lost tourists to enter the base. You see these big battleships like these here lurking in the water. San Diego is the site of one of the larger U.S. naval bases and the largest base on the Pacific coast. Let's go right down to the south end of the city, the other end. This is the U.S.-Mexico border wall, and these crossings here at San Diego are the busiest in the U.S. I tried to cross at this border crossing a few years ago. I was coming from Mexico back into the States, and there's probably 20 or 30 lanes of traffic, bumper to bumper, vehicles everywhere. And I got partway through with the lineup, and I noticed that a lot of RVs were over on the far side from where I was at. Well, I came up to the station, and the first thing the American border guard said to me was, "You're in the wrong lane." Well, it was too late to do anything about it at that point, and he said that the reason they wanted vehicles in the far side was that there was a sharp turn ahead of me. But my motorhome was short enough. I made the turn, crossed over onto the American side, and everything was fine. The city on the Mexican side is Tijuana, and it's about as big as San Diego. So every year they say that there's about 25 million crossings of people and about 15 million vehicle crossing each year at this border crossing. So where do you stay in a big place like San Diego with your RV? We kept hugging the coast and ended up on the south side near the Mexican border at a state park right along the beach. The camping area was simply a paved parking lot, which was handy for walking and riding our bikes around. It looked like storms had pushed this sand up along the beach, and there were quite a few birds in the marshy areas that we really enjoyed watching. It looks like regular ducks around. There was quite a few of those, and of course the seagulls were everywhere. We rode our bikes along the shore over to the historic Hotel del Coronado. Built in 1888, it claimed to be one of the world's larger wooden structures and was one of the earlier buildings to install electricity. It was the site of early Hollywood movies, and the rich and famous stayed there. People like Marilyn Monroe, Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, and more recently, Oprah. The guy in the back seat with his arm in the car is one of the earlier American presidents, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he was at the hotel. The hotel has a ghost story where years ago a woman stayed at the hotel to meet her lover. He never showed up. She committed suicide, and her ghost is now sometimes seen or heard in one of the rooms and in the hallways. There is, of course, a nice beach area for guests at the hotel, and in the whole area you can see nice apartments for retired and working people, just a nice area and lots of availability to the beach. Look at the second line on this highway sign. It says Balboa Park. It's a big urban park in central San Diego with lots of stuff and recreation and paths and lawns in it. However, look at the top sign. It says the zoo. Let's pull off here and follow the signs. We are headed for the world-famous San Diego Zoo. Panda Bears from China were there when we were there. You get to ride around in these big super buses around the zoo area. It's a very, very large area. Overhead walkways like these are all part of the zoo area. This was a huge, fast-moving escalator that carried people up to different levels of the zoo. We saw descendants of zebras from the William Randolph Hearst Castle, and of course a polar bear or two, and storks, and a lot of animals that I don't even know the names of. They had elephants. This was an elephant eating from this swinging platform. And of course the little penguins were there, and this was a black bear unique to South America. And he was loafing and sleeping some of the time when we were there. I don't even know the name of this animal and some of the other ones. This is the big animal from Central and South America. This is a tapir, I think. And I'm guessing that the llamas. The variety of nice plants added to the atmosphere at the zoo. And here are some other animals. Looks like some kind of a goat. And the turtles and some animal here that I don't know the name of. An antelope of some sort, maybe the camels. These were birds and animals not limited to North America, but it was wildlife from all over the world. This was a Mexican eagle here. And another bird, I don't know what it was. This next one looks like it's an animal from Africa. And this is a little koala from Australia. And they also had a number of fish in the various ponds. And what's a zoo without flamingos? The most popular exhibit was the Panda Bears from China. The 20-year on-loan agreement ended a while ago, and the bears were returned to China. But the San Diego Zoo contributed in helping the world bring these bears back from near extinction. Pandas are both good climbers and swimmers. They have 4 fingers and a thumb like humans, and eat bamboo stalks all day long. They can live 20 years in the wild and 30 years in captivity. Usually only a single cub is born, and the mother raises her cub on her own. The male does not help. As is clearly evident, pandas are cute and usually are docile and solitary creatures, but they can get agitated by people. Pandas still are bears, and it's probably fair to say that it is true that people like pandas more than pandas like people. Nevertheless, the pandas were the highlight of our visit to the zoo. We didn't want to leave without visiting the old historic park in downtown. Very Hispanic and Latino orientation, and kind of a Western theme from the old days. It was a historic park downtown with you could eat and buy a few things. Very enjoyable and very colorful with the various Hispanic art that was there. We sat on this bench for a little while and rested, but you could also buy a number of things there. And it was just a very pleasant, tourist-oriented kind of place. Here's an old cigar store Indian. They had a store there where they sold tobacco and cigars, and Canadians were involved. Racine and Laramie were 2 Canadians who started up the store. And notice how they spelt cigars in those days. S-E instead of C-I. Here's some other pictures of the area, the downtown area, and palm trees and a lot of colorful flowers. It was just a nice place for a tourist like us to visit. We also stopped by Imperial Beach, a popular place in the downtown area. They have a long pier that extends out into the water where a lot of people fished off and went for a walk and were sightseeing. This pelican was flipping around all over the place. He'd been fed before by the various tourists. We looked down and a few people were surfing. And these kids were trying to catch bubbles being blown across to them. Well, that's about part 4 of 4 parts. Coming down the west coast of the USA, right into San Diego. Where are we going next? Well, hit the subscribe button because we got some other places to go. And until then, we'll see you down the road. This is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. Adios for now.